Hello, welcome to episode 174 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today is the 22nd of July, so welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely crafty week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today I have some knitting, a blast from the past, a gadget and some information on my shop update. And I feel like I've just got knitting to show you today. It's been so warm, I've not been able to work much in my craft room at the weekend because it's got really hot. So I've been focusing on the knitting. So we have a couple of Makalongs going on in the Ravelry group and on Instagram, and there's more information of those in the description bar down below. So let's get on with the knitting, shall we? And I have a couple of finished objects to show you. So first of all, I have some socks, and I started these last week actually, and I'm already finished. Little pair of shorties, and I absolutely love how these have come out. So they're a beautiful pattern called the Summer Lace Socks by Tracy, who's Pink Magic Crafts. On Ravelry. I will leave a link to her pattern in the description bar down below so you can get a copy yourself. And it's got a beautiful lace across the top of the foot and then all the way around the leg as well. I've chosen to do a shorter version. In the pattern, Tracy says about doing 2 repeats of the lace for like a short version, but then there's also a longer version that she shows pictures of as well. And I'll pop a picture up here so you can see what those look like. And I love these socks. I'm really pleased with how those have come out. And I used some gorgeous yarn that I picked up from Ducky Darlings, and it is a beautiful sock set, and it's a colourway that Hayley brought out for Fibre East a couple of years ago, so I don't think she dyes it at the moment, but she's got some really beautiful colourways in her shop, and I'll leave a link to her shop in the description bar down below. So I had a 50 gram of the main colour and a 20 gram of the contrast grey here, and I managed to get the heels, toes and cuffs out of 20 grams. I find with a heel flap and gusset type sock that with 20 grams I can always get the heel, toe and cuff out of the 20 grams as long as I don't do more than 14 rows on the cuff here. And I knit a size 6 normally for a UK size 6 shoe, just so that you can gauge that. Quite a lot of people ask me, can you get away with a heel, toe and cuff with a 20 gram mini? The answer is yes, but just don't do too much cuff at the top here. Of course, if you've got a very wide foot that you might be struggling, I tend to use 64 stitches on 2.5mm needles, so if you are using more you might struggle a little bit, so you might want to just do the cuff and the heel and just see how you get on. I'm sure if you did about sort of 10 rows you'd probably be alright as well. It's a bit of trial and error for the gauge and the stitch count that you normally go for. But I had 18 grams of the main colour left out of a 50 gram skein, which is really good because I can use it for something else. And I had 2 grams left of the contrast as well, so I could have done a few more rows on the cuff, I suppose. And isn't that a beautiful colourway? Really pleased how that's come out. Tracy's pattern is really well written. The only change that I did make is that I just added some slip stitches on the back of the heel flap, just because I like the look of that, but the rest is the same. And if you want to find a written out pattern for the slip stitches, on my simple top down sock pattern, which is a free sock pattern, I do give you instructions on how to do the slip stitches on the heel flap, and I'll leave a link to that pattern in the description bar down below as well. But I do have a finished pair of socks. Woo! So that's my first finished object I've got to show you. Secondly, I have a cowl. So this is the Paris to Berlin cowl by Locatelli, and actually Lynn knitted this for me, but I've blocked it out ready to show you. So it is knitted in the round, so you start at the top here and it starts off a bit like a shawl pattern, and then you join up at the back and end up knitting most of it in the tube, in the round. And I'm going to attempt to put it on even though it's really warm today. So I love this sort of style of cowl because it's almost like a shawl. It's a bit like the other Locatelli cowl pattern that I got Liz to knit, and I've knitted one as well. but it's really pretty. So this is freshly blocked, so you can see with the crease lines a bit. So once that's been worn a bit, those will disappear. But isn't that lovely, the way it sort of lays out? It gets wider. I think that this style of cowl always looks really nice with a top as well. So it's sort of a cross between a shawl and a top. There's some beautiful patterns on the cowl, and it's just finished off with some garter stitch. I got Liz to use a contrast yarn for the edge, just because I was sort of using my stash up and I thought that that would sort of go really nicely. So I've used 2 different yarns for this. They're both the same yarn though. They are baby alpaca silk from Drops, and there's 2 colourways that I used. They don't actually have a name, but the colourways are 1760 and 3250, I think. I like it because it's quite short at the back and then longer at the front, and I think it looks really nice, and you can wear it without risk of it flying away like a normal shawl. So there we go. I'm not going to be able to wear this for very long because it is quite warm today. I must say that the baby alpaca and silk, there is a nice detail of stitch pattern at the top here, but it doesn't show up as well as it would on a yarn that was had a better twist to it, because it's quite loosely spun, I think, but it's still come out really pretty. And I just think it's interesting how such a long tube, when it's worn, looks really nice and quite different to what you think it might do. But there we go. I just blocked it flat, and I did find actually that the cast off edge was quite wide, so I just sort of pulled it out a little bit more at the sides. But I think it's really nice that it is knitted in a tube rather than having to sew it up afterwards. So there we go, that's another finished object. Well, it was a bit of a cheat really, because Liz knitted it for me. So I have a new cast on for this week, and after my news of telling you all that I'm actually pregnant, I have started some baby booties. So this pattern is a pattern that I've used quite a few times. I think I've knitted about 5 pairs for friends, and a couple of friends asked me for a second pair because they were so good. They are called the Stay On Booties by Knitgirls Mother, and they were a free pattern on Ravelry. They are knitted flat in like a garter stitch style, but apparently they stay on really well. So I'm knitting a pair for my little baby, and I have chosen some speckled multicoloured yarn because we don't know the gender yet, and also I'm not really keen on pink for a girl, blue for a boy. I think we should all be allowed to have any colour we like. And here is the cake of yarn, some beautiful speckles, and this is a Layfamily yarn, and this is one of her sock sets that was for the Great British Bake Off. Must have been a few years ago now, and I don't know why I've not cast it on, but I thought this was ideal because it's got speckles of all the different colours in. The pattern says you need 40 grams, so I thought, because this is a 50 gram skein that was with a mini, that should be nice, and then I can use the little bit of extra to put into my Battenberg blanket. So that's how far I've got on so far. Hopefully next week I'll have finished at least one of these booties to show you what they look like. Maybe the 2, we'll see. They take a little bit more yarn than you'd expect for a tiny pair of booties, but I think it's because it's garter stitch. They're nice and thick, and they're also fold over at the top as well, which is really nice. And because the baby's going to be born at the end of November, I think it'll need something to keep its little feet nice and warm. So starting with some booties. So now I have a blast from the past. Now this isn't that long ago, but because I hadn't let the big secret out yet, I didn't tell you what it was for exactly. So Liz had knitted this Habitation throw specifically for the baby. So we don't know the gender yet, so I've just got some pinks and purples out of my stash because I thought that they went well together, and I'm going to get Liz to knit another sort of multicoloured one, I think, because I think that either girls and boys can have pinks and blues. But this is a lovely pattern. I think that will be a really nice blanket for the baby to lie on, for it to snuggle up in. And also it uses up lots of my minis, and I do like the feel and softness of merino for the baby, so that'll be brilliant. It's not a huge blanket, but it'll be ideal for a baby, I think. For this one, I chose 12 20-gram minis out of my stash, and that Liz knitted up for me. But the pattern was originally designed for 24 10 grams, but I've got lots of 20-gram minis in my stash, so I thought I'd use those instead. But it's got a really nice lacy pattern on it, and I just think it's really pretty. So definitely going to have another one of these, because I know that this will need washing, and I know it's merino isn't ideal for babies for washing, but I'm used to doing quite a lot of hand washing anyway, so I can just stick it in a nice bucket of Eucalan to give it a nice soak. And then if I've got another blanket, I can sort of alternate them, and one can be in the wash. So that is my Habitation throw, nice and cosy. So my next section is Gadget for this week. So you may have noticed that I've got these little needle stoppers on my DPN needles that I've been knitting the Booties with, and this is my Gadget for this week. So these are little stoppers that you can just put on needles to stop the stitches coming off. So I'm sort of using them as straight needles with the little bungs on the end to stop the stitches coming off. And then actually when I've stopped knitting, I tend to put them like that so that the stitches stay onto that one DPN. So I've had these for quite a few years, but I've now started to stock them in my shop. So these are the Clover point protectors and needle stoppers, and you get a little set of 6. 3 turquoise and 3 orange, and I just like these. They've got a really nice rubbery texture and ideal for keeping your stitches on your needles. I also actually do a panda version as well, which are made by HiyaHiya, which are equally good. But this week's Gadget is all about the Clover version. I find them really good because they have an L and an R marked on them, and one's got a little extra knobbly bit, so you can sort of tell the difference. If you are, say, if you're knitting a Cozy Memories blanket, you can tell which needle you're knitting, so that might indicate which side you're doing your decreases. And I do use these little stoppers for my Cozy Memories blanket as well. So there we go, that's my Gadget for this week. So last of all, I've got my shop update, and this Friday, the 23rd of July, my August yarn clubs will be available for sale on the website. So they'll be available from 7 PM BST on the 23rd of July, and then I'll close the listing on the 8th of August for pre-orders, and then they'll be dyed up and shipped before the 20th of August. The last couple of months I've actually been able to ship them out a little bit early, so hopefully I'll be able to do the same this month. But I just like to give a date that I know that I can definitely meet, so that you're not thinking, where's my yarn club? Also, I wanted to mention that Pro Magma chart keepers are back in stock now for the larger size, because I had run out of stock of those, but I've got some more stock in. So that's rather a short one for this week. I seem to be just focusing on knitting, but I have actually cut out a shirt out of the fabric, so I should be able to have assembled that by next week to show you. So that'll be exciting. Hopefully I'll get some more time in the craft room this weekend. And also next week I'm hoping to be able to tell you the gender of the baby, because we've got a scan next week, so that'll be exciting too. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!